Ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, everyone's so excited. There's even honking outside my door. Welcome to Star Trek New Worlds. My name is Tony. Thank you for joining us live. We are already at double digits. Thank you for those of you who are here now. And for those of you who are catching us on the replay, then thank you for taking the time. We are here at Star Trek New Worlds, bringing to you live a turn-based strategy game that we play using the rule set as published by the Federation Empire rule set, I should say, as published by the Amarillo Design Bureau, brought to you through the wonderful magic of Vassal that we will show you the map here in a second. It is a turn-based strategy game that we play in the Starfleet universe, and players from across the world, from Australia to the UK to all across North America and beyond, play together. And we bring you the role-playing goodness, the war game strategy, and all the tomfoolery that comes with it. So thank you for joining us here live today. I can see wonderful, chat has already gotten going. For those of you who are new to Star Trek New Worlds, let me give you a quick walk around the map. You can see there is a QR code right over there. That QR code, take your phone, give it a scan, and then you can make a coffee donation, as we love all things caffeine here. You could also use the link there below to be able to send a little coffee our way. Speaking of those coffee links, you'll see on the very bottom of this screen a white bar where currently we have the goal at basically 2 donations or $10. And as we get coffee donations, you'll see that bar grow. And the goal is, of course, we'll see about 2 coffees during the course of this live stream. We'll see how we do, but that only is with the help of you. And of course, if coffee isn't your thing and Patreon is more your speed, then feel free to check out the link in the description below, and you can, of course, send us any kind of donation and support that way as well. If you are looking to carry on after this live stream is done, then you can, of course, join us on our Discord channel, where we have a little witty banter back and forth. And of course, we will be discussing some exciting aspects of today's turn that we'll be describing. But what will we be talking about today? Well, if you haven't already seen it, it's mixing my sci-fi properties. Hello there. We have a new, not discovery, but rather somebody is coming out of the shadows to say hi. Highway to Heaven or Hell, a new free transit zone has appeared on the map from north to south, covering the entire spectrum of the west side of the galaxy. So we'll talk about that. Navigational error or grabbing territory. It seems like a drunken Riemann commander or captain has crossed the neutral zone. We'll talk about that. How the Klingons have grown their fleet by 33%. Yeah. Wow. We'll talk about that in a moment. And of course, we're going to go through the whole turns. Oh yeah. Whoa, ladies and gentlemen, you can see, ba-boom, we are now halfway along our train towards our 2 coffee donation goal. Thank you to the Juggernaut. Speaking of which, the ones who were coming out and saying, hello there. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. So we're going to be talking about that in a second, but in order to dive into the news proper, let me bring you the galactic news. It would help, Tony, if you had the news up and ready to go. Stand by. Here we are. Tonight's special guest star. A new Juggernaut fleet has made an appearance over the base in Sector India 25. Most likely in reaction to recent Riemann exploration in the area. Perhaps this time they will reach out and establish friendly diplomatic ties with the rest of the galaxy. And if you believe that, this reporter has an Einstein-Rosen bridge they would like to sell you. I know, it's funny. My way or the highway. After months of work laying down navigational beacons and charting anomalies, a new free transit zone has been established through Federation and Tholian space. Have these 2 nations built a bridge over troubled waters or a highway to hell? Whole today, gone tomorrow. Regional instability in hyperspace has caused the collapse of a previously stable wormhole linking Riemann and ISC space. Is this a natural phenomenon, or have one of those two nations developed a wormhole-destroying super weapon? Speculation is rampant regarding a secret pact with the Juggernauts, who are rumored to be masters of wormhole manipulation. Setting down roots, a new colony of Cadia has been established in Klingon space. Utilizing an ancient generation ship found in deep space, Klingon scientists have managed to cleanoform a marginal mining world into a habitable world. Celebrations on Cadia and at the capital are to continue for the rest of the week. Jubilation is mandatory. All quiet on the Eastern Front. For the first time in many months, there have been no major battles in the war raging between the two great alliances. Other than a Carnarvon dogpile destroying a lone Riemann frigate, fighting has virtually ceased along the front. Some cite the lack of infrastructure in the area as the reason for a pause in hostilities. Others dare to hope that this might be a sign that the destructive war is nearing an end. Are we seeing the first signs of sunny weather, or is this merely a calm between storms? Should have taken the left turn at Albuquerque, claiming navigational errors due to space weather. A Riemann fleet has crossed into the Lyran neutral zone. Resources in the area have been temporarily confiscated to effect repairs, with promises to leave the area once the storms have passed. Is this truly a case of losing the map that was folded up in the glove box, or are the Riemanns putting on their boxing gloves? Only time will tell. So what do you think of those exciting galactic jewels? Nuggets of golden goodness. We shall see what's coming our way. But before we get in, I want to say hello to everybody in the chat. Let's scroll on through. I know that our local press agent, Eugene, has been hard at work. Let's read what Eugene has to say. The week's wait is nearly over. The stable signal is a juggy base. They're here. What now? One border is known. Where are the others? Anyone sending an old frigate or freighter to seek the border? What's with the Romgorn FTZ? Is it free for Tholia 2? Now that the FTZ through Carney space is open, how long will it be before the road is paved with YBS supply stations? Will the legendary E1 captain go in the War of Northern Aggression? There we go. Go in the War of Northern Aggression. Has the Carney Hydron Alliance continued to push back the ISC Riemann intruders? Have the ISC Riemann fleet regrouped for revenge for recent losses? Answers on the way. Jim is in the house. We don't need no stinking coffee, he says. Well, we shall see. Dan, welcome, Dan. Where do the Riemanns come from, or the Carnarvons? Are they just a player spot using another race's counters? Well, I saw there was a little bit of chatter about this. Carnarvons being an early era SFB race, Bill Linton is saying, wiped out by the Lyrans and the Kzinti in the Y period. Jim is describing our Riemanns as the homebrew alternative Romulan, basically taking the K ships or the Kestrel ships from SFB. Bill is in the house. Fluffy space dragons. Oh, terrible. Jim Paladin was wiped out by the Lyrans in the Far Stars off-map area, similar to the Borak in the Hydron old colonies. Oh, so the GM made the K-series ships? Kind of. We had them sort of pre-existing. But Big Slow Target saying, gee, it's too bad nobody here likes... Thumbs up. The video, hint, hint. Yes, I noticed, by the way, we are at 14 concurrent viewers at the moment. If anyone and everyone would take a moment to hit that thumbs up button, we'd like to tickle the YouTube algorithm in just the right way. Is that laughing I hear? Tickle, tickle? We shall see. All right, Daniel, here we go. Daniel, the GM for New Worlds, is in the house. Here we go. Here we go again. Kevin, go Juggernauts. And, of course, Del and Paul, the Northern Alliance, are here, angels that they are. Hoorah! All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's not delay. Let's get into the exciting play at hand. To the map. So today I've done something a little different with the map. For those of you who have watched our previous streams, I've zoomed it out to the max so that you're not losing anything on the edges, but I have cropped it top and bottom so you don't get to see all the tabs I have open. And of course, the local time in the bottom corner. So either way, you've got the full map here in full effect and stereo sound. And as opposed to previous live streams, let's start off with EP and fleet cap right off the bat. All right, so we'll put the EP on the left, the fleet cap on the right, make that fleet cap ever so bigger because, you know, there's so much info there. All right, let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, let's start off with the Carnivon. The Pack of Pride is at 45.5 EP. The Federation, Big Blue, is at 47.5. The Gorn are at an even 48. The Hydrons have gone beyond the lucky number 13. They are now at 14 EP. The ISC are at 42.5, with the Klingons at still holding steady at 53. The Lyrans have fallen to 39.5, now officially the lowest economy in the game, barring the Hydrons. And of course, the Remans are at a mighty 55.5, now officially number one economy on the map. The Romulans are at a sweet 44, and the Tholians are at 54.5. There's nothing that makes me more frustrated than seeing the Tholians over the Klingons when it comes to the economy, only because I know what's coming. All right, let's talk about fleet cap. Ladies and gentlemen, the Carnivon are holding their ground with 107 ship equivalents. Their total attack factors, 261 with 436 in defense. Notice the difference between 436 is their total defense factors, but their fleet cap is 460. That would suggest they have quite a few crippled ships. The Federation is at 62 ship equivalents with a 170 attack factor, 272 defense factors, and their fleet cap is sweet at 272, so no crippled ships on their end. The Gorn are at 57. Excuse me, I'm about to burp. There we go. The Gorn are at 57 at 119 total attack factors, ba-bang, and 234 in defense. The Hydrons still maintaining a large fleet at 63 ship equivalents with 142 attack, 245 defense. Notice they are 245 defense. Their fleet cap is 259. There are a couple of cripples in that mix. The ISC with a 90, still below 100, but 90 ship equivalents with a total attack factor of 270. 270 total total attack factors and a defense factor of 389. The 389 defense factor versus their fleet cap of 428 shows you how many crazy cripples they are still dealing with. The Klingons, boom, have peaked or popped over 60 anyway. They are now at 73 ship equivalents with cracking the 200 mark at 209 attack factors, 301 defense. The Lyrans at 57 ship equivalents at 135 attack, 266 defense. The Remans, still the king of the hill at 138. Jeez, they are nearly double the Klingon fleet size. Oh my God. The Remans, 138 ship equivalents with a total of 406. Wow. 406 attack factors, 533 defense. To put that into context, the Reman fleet has a total attack factor that is bigger than the next biggest fleet's defense factor. Wow, that is just unreal. Okay, so Remans, kicking butt and taking names. Romulans, 58 ship equivalents at 160 total attack factors, 256 defense. And the Tholians rounding us out at 66 ship equivalents, 104 attack, 264 defense. So what's so interesting about that? Well, of course, as we go down the list, you heard a lot of 60s and 50s and so on and so forth. So we have a group of players that have basically the average size of fleets around the 60 mark, a little bit more, a little bit less. We have a couple of outliers like the Remans who are like double that at 138. The ISC, of course, at 90. The Carnivon at 107. Wow, it's just crazy. So Reman's biggest, then the Carnivon, then the ISC. That's a lot of ships. That's just a lot of ships. So the factions that are currently at war, obviously they have bigger fleets than the other factions. You have basically everybody else floating around 60, with the Klingons just a little bit above 60. Wow, it's crazy. It's an exciting time to be on the map. Speaking of exciting things, shall we go down the list of the news items? Let's start in Lyran territory, shall we? And discuss this navigational error. Let's zoom in so you can truly see what's going on here on the border. What do we got? What's going on? So let's take away the ships real quick. You can see that this is the neutral zone between Riemann in red and the Lyrans in yellow. This little hex here used to be yellow. Now it's red. What's going on? Well, it would seem that Fleet Commander Alucard with Prometheus Fleet has had a navigational error of sorts and wandered into Lyran space. Let's take a look what Prometheus Fleet is all about. All right, let's put it down here. We've got 2 cruisers, KD4s, 1 destroyer, and 4 frigates. So nothing too crazy. But as we will see in a moment, more than a match for anything that's in the area. So they just wandered over, took a resource, and there they are. They've got New Fleet backing them up. So what's in Riemann New Fleet? Ooh, well, that's not nothing. We've got a cruiser, 2 Y air cruisers, KD3s, 4 destroyers, 6, 7 frigates, and 1 W air frigate. I'm about to sneeze. I feel it coming. Excuse me. Hopefully that was slightly entertaining. Okay, so we've got the Prometheus and New Fleet right here. They are interesting to note as we take away the ships real quick. You notice the bases, or the base reach. So 1, 2, 3 right there. I'm surprised that the Riemans would do that without establishing a base along the border here first. But hey, what do I know? They've wandered over. They may take another resource or 2. Who knows? But what do the Lyrans have in the area? Well, they've got a YCA here, which all by itself isn't going to be enough to stop anything that's there. We've got White Stripe Fleet, which was up in this area preparing to deal with a monster that disappeared. So Lyran White Stripes. There we are, White Stripe Fleet. Oh, well, that's not nothing. Okay, let's, we got a CL, 4 DDs, 2 FFs, a tug, and that's cool. I have never seen a scout or a survey pallet, which is what that is. That's a survey pallet. That is so cool. Chuck, you're going to have to tell us about that. That is so neat. So you're using a tug like a scout, or like a survey ship. That is pretty cool. That's a really cool functionality. I never knew that existed. That's so cool. Nice. So the White Stripes are in the area. Now, I would argue that they probably are not enough to totally stop New and Prometheus Fleet, but they're certainly enough to stop one or the other, or at least, bloody their nose and force them to go back and repair. So it'll be interesting to see how this works out. Of course, the home fleet is relatively close, 1, 2, 3, 4, only 2 moves away, and I believe that the Lyran home fleet ain't nothing. Let's take a look. Yeah, we've got a big enough fleet to cause some problems. What we got? 2 CCs, sorry, 3 CCs. Let's put that there just so we can, there we go. 3 CCs, 2 CAs, a YCL, 6 DDs, and 2 FFs. So this is more than enough to sort of cause issues for the, I'm just going to reorganize this ever so slightly. I do apologize for doing this all on the fly. So yeah, that's exciting. That's more than enough to be able to bloody the nose of the Riemans. And of course, now that they've crossed, they've not only entered the neutral zone, but they've taken a resource from the Lyrans. The Lyrans are at war, which is good for the Lyrans in the sense that it improves their economy. They are now at 100%, econ, and they're going to be able to do some good stuff against the Riemans. Very exciting. Okay, well, let's finish the table here with the Lyrans. So we've talked about home fleet and what's sort of in the neighborhood to be able to deal with the Riemans. What do we got in the bottom corner here? We've got enemy blood, 2 survey ships and 2 small survey freighters, with a third one seemingly on the way. You can see here. So 2 small survey freighters doing their business and 2 survey cruisers. Enemy blood is sitting on top of a YBS. Let's take a look. What's in enemy blood? Enemy blood. Can I find you? That's always the fun part, is finding. There we are, enemy blood fleet. So we got two CAs, a CL, the DD, and FF. So nothing too crazy, but more than enough to be able to sort of defend the survey ships that are in the area, the survey cruisers. So that is certainly good. Gooda. All right. What else we've got in the area? We've got most of the military stuff is either home fleet, top corner, bottom corner here. We've also got Hidden Dagger, Bloodstar, and Farstar's fleet. This is sort of the stuff I would say that was getting ready to jump. Ooh, she is neat. Heavy Dreadnought, CCCACL, 4 DDs and 3 FFs. Well. Bloodstar. Let's look at Bloodstar. What do you got there, my friend? Bloodstar fleet. And 3 DDs. Farstars. This is starting to look very interesting. So between Bloodstars, or Bloodstar, Farstars, and Hidden Dagger fleet, I think there's more than enough, my personal opinion, for the Lyrans to be able to jump through the hole and say hello to the Carnivon and Hydrants. I don't know that they would necessarily be able to hold it the way it currently looks, but I think they're in a great position to be able to jump through that wormhole and cause some pain. Interesting. Curious what you guys think. Let's just quickly look at the chat. There we are. Let's go look at the chat. We got those lips, those things I have got here, they work really well. Big slow target, quick look, Riemann, Carnivon, Klingon fleets each grew by net 7 ships. Tholian 5, Gorn 4, ISC 1, others static. Interesting. Big slow targets, the numbers man, he is keeping track about what's going on. Very interesting. So big slow target, here's a question to you and all of our other viewers who are keeping track of the numbers. When you look at that, what does that tell you? Can you extrapolate or theorize about what is being built if those are the numbers that you're looking at? Let's see what you come up with. All right. Hey, BST, don't tell. Big slow target. Haha, the data is already out there. I only use what's already on the screen. Fair. Eugene, KK9, a Lyran ship escorting. What? Have Riemans and Lyrans exchanged diplomats or R&D teams? Does Wary change the bonuses? So you're right. The Lyrans have. Let's go back to the map real quick. The Lyrans have this light cruiser and R&D ship on the way, virtually almost at the Riemann capital. So the question is, are the Riemans about to spit in the face of the Lyrans and basically blow up this light cruiser and R&D team? Are they going to allow them to retreat? What's going to happen here? Is this a war that's about to pop off? Who knows? Maybe this is a misunderstanding that gives the Lyrans a economic bonus to prepare for what may come. Who knows? There's all sorts of interesting options that are now on the table because the Lyrans are at war status. Very interesting. We'll come back to the Riemans in a moment. But let's go to the top of the treasure trail, the highway to hell from this perspective, or if you're a Tom Cochrane fan, life is a highway. Life is a highway. I can't sing. Don't even try. There we go. You can see this right here is the highway, the free transit zone that goes from the border of the Lyrans down into Federation space. So let me zoom out real quick and give you a perspective of what I am looking at. So the highway, which is a little hard for you to see, if I could, I would draw a line, but basically it goes from here, if you can see, down to the border with the Tholians, and then you cut across to the right, and then there's this highway all the way down to the Gorn border. Let's zoom in. I can show you that a little bit better. So as we get to this point, you can see that it starts here on the Lyran border, comes down, hangs a straight south and heads straight to the Tholian border. Once it hits the Tholian border, it goes straight across the neutral zone, and then it goes from the Tholian side, or the Tholian Fed shared border, all the way south through kind of, or just around the side of the Kzinti faction that's here, straight to this wormhole with the Gorn. Now, what's interesting and telling about that is that it doesn't actually cut through Lyran or Gorn space. So is this a deal with the Lyran Feds, Tholians, and Gorn? Is it just with the Feds and the Tholians? Why are they connecting those two neutral zones? Who knows? Maybe this is a prelude for the Tholians to help the Feds, or the Feds help the Tholians as part of a mutual defense pact. Maybe it's an alignment of the entire west side of the map. Lyrans, Gorn, Feds, Tholians. Who knows? There's so much that could go into here. But I digress. Let's talk about the Feds. So as we go across the border, we can see that the Federation has established a really good base network along here. The only challenge with their base infrastructure is that it kind of stops, drops off a cliff here at the Sierra column. So Sierra to Tango, no other bases, but they do have a colony here, which is providing them supply, which is useful. And then, of course, they still have their cruisers with prime teams doing exploration. If I take away the ships real quick, you can see that they've got a base under construction here in uniform. So they've got the coverage for supply. They just don't have the redundancy or resiliency built in with their base structure right there. But they are building bases, as they're pushing to the east or the southeast, and that's working well. What can we see? We've got, 10th, 8th, 9th. These are all fleets with a cruiser and a prime team in them, and probably an escort frigate. Let's look real quick. So 10th fleet, by example, frigate, cruiser, prime team. And they're all the same. So you can see that they've got the prime team cruiser combo that's, doing the exploration along the border here, which is very nice. You've got 4th fleet, which is probably the remnants of 4th fleet. Where are you? Yeah, CC, 2 CAs, and 4 DDs. This is the remnants of the fleet that was beaten up on where Midway is here, this former Kzinti medium planet, which is now in the grasp of the Federation. So they've got this sort of on lockdown in this area. We go along the border along with the Tholians. You can see very interesting where they chose to put their bases. They've built their bases 1 hex back from the actual border, which is an interesting move, but nonetheless creates that redundancy layer with the other bases they sort of had in their network, which is interesting. But again, across the strait here, you can see that ties in with exploration they have going on the far left of the map, and of course 7th Fleet, which is always something the Klingons spend a lot of time looking at because it's has that fleet grown or not, or what's going on there. So we've got 5 frigates, 2 cruisers. It's been slow and steady as far as 7th Fleet as a sort of a gatekeeper on that particular wormhole. We've also got the Kzinti faction. Come on now, be nice. There we go. So the Kzinti faction is at Happy, or H+, which means they are on the cusp of sort of being ready to be absorbed into the Federation. But as is always the case with the Federation and their diplomacy in this game, they're just having a hard time with it, and they've been that way for quite some time. It's just, can we close the deal? Obviously, the Kzinti as a faction with the Federation are just hard to deal with. I don't know. Maybe the Feds are just not cat people. Who knows? Either way, they're not making it work, but they are still working hard at it. So what else have we got? We've got Kepler here with a base station on top of a wormhole that, to my knowledge, has not been explored. And lastly, Uniform, which heads over to ISC space, has 2nd Fleet on it, which, if I do recall, has a number of cruisers. 3 of them. 3 cruisers and 5 frigates. So a slightly beefier protection force on that wormhole than the one that leads to Klingon space. Very interesting. What else we got? We've got, again, the Tholian R&D team. Looks like a commercial convoy making its way to their homeworld, and so on and so forth. Nothing too exciting there. As we look into Tholian space, and we'll go back to the chat after we've looked at Tholian space here. So Tholian space is, there's a couple of real standouts. Number 1, what's going on over here? What's this stabilized sensor reading here? What's going on there? We know exactly what that is, and we'll talk about that in a moment. We've got the base construction. As I take away the ships, you can see a YDK upgrade occurring here on the Whiskey wormhole that led to ISC space. So if we quickly scoot over, we can remember that up here is the Whiskey wormhole, and down here is the November wormhole. So Whiskey was in ISC space, November was in Riemann space. And so that's what we see here. We have a YDK being built or upgraded on the Whiskey. We already have one on the November. And of course, we have various number of ships supporting them there. It'll be very telling, because we know that this is essentially the Juggernauts, that they have a YDK so close the Tholians can respond to what will inevitably be the Juggernauts poking their nose into Tholian business. All right, what else we got? We got the Derelict, which has been sort of static here. No action on that to actually recover it. We've got a Federation R&D team. Looks like they may be on their way to, or maybe they're on their way back. I thought the R&D team was already on the Tholian home system. Oh, it is. My mistake. So it is there on the Tholian capital, and they're just doing shared research and development. There we are. All right. Home Fleet. Maybe Home Fleet is on its way to go recover that Derelict. Let's take a look at Tholian. There you are. Tholian Home Fleet. Boom. Oh, that is not nothing. We've got 4 cruisers. Looks like another 3 destroyers, 3 groups of 3, so total of 10 patrol craft. Very interesting. So that's probably their biggest fleet, I'm going to guess, for the Tholians. That's quite a collection right there and then. And, of course, they may also be ready to attack a Green Dragon, Flaming Dragon over here, the medium planet that is ready to... They hate the Tholians, so the Tholians will go to war status or limited war status and pound the bejesus out of Green Dragon and get the benefits of that as they go. All right, and then of course the most exciting part of the Tholian experience for me is their journey with the Kzinti down here. Now the Kzinti, for memory, and of course, Vassal, play nice, please. There we are. So we've got a medium planet that is happy with the Tholians, which is, I feel horrible about that. They do, of course, have a big fleet here. We've got 6 YPGBs, a YDK, and the Kzinti home fleet, which has 6 frigates, 3 light cruisers, 3 strike cruisers, a command cruiser, and a dreadnought. This fleet alone is more than enough to hold back the entire Tholian navy. But the Tholians are being diplomatic about it. Those sneaky crystalline things. So anyways, they're working at trying to get the Kzinti on side, and they're having a little bit of a challenge with it because it's been Happy Plus for a while. But I would love to see an opportunity for the Tholians to go to war status, which will reduce their diplomatic potential for success. And if there was at the same time concurrently some underhanded efforts to be able to poison the well between the Tholians and the Kzinti, that might be something that could be done. Very, very interesting. Okay, we're about to jump into the Gorn, but let's jump into the chat real quick as we check in. Whoa, ladies and gentlemen, I see a lot of chatter. Wow. Okay, let's pick up with Bill Linton. It's a Fed Tholian agreement to allow Tholians to trade with Lyrans and the Feds to trade with the Gorn. Aha! So we are discussing the highway of heroes, shall we say? No. It's definitely the treasure trail then, if we're talking about trade. Treasure trail it is, anointed such. We had the golden rod on the east side. We had the treasure trail on the west side. Choose your dirty thought. Okay, Bill Linton, Fed Tholian agreement to allow trade between the Lyrans, the Feds, and the Gorn. Big slow targets. Ship built plus combat potential suggests the Klingon offense-defense upped by almost 20% and not from repairs. Average ship size built 5 out of 5. Maybe M mobilization? Bill Smith, no one said anything to me Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more. Big slow target. Carnarvon up 29 out of 47. Probably some repairs, but going for defense factors means economic buildup or defense to make fleets last longer. Rieman's building 22 out of 27, but is their build or is their built topping out? Maybe. Interesting. Okay. Eugene, how close is F-16 in Fedland from joining the Federation? So if you're at a happy plus, one more step gets you to being sort of part of the family. However, that last step is much more monumental. GM Daniel can tell us more about the hurdles when it comes to making that last step. It should be said that generally speaking, the diplomatic journey from hateful to happy is relatively easy. The journey from happy to part of your empire is a little bit more of a hurdle to jump. I'll let Daniel answer that. Whoa, ladies and gentlemen, the Hydrogen Caffeine has arrived. We have reached our goal, ladies and gentlemen. Bam, 150% of our $10 goal. Thank you very much, everybody. That would suggest we have not one, not two, but 3 coffee donations today, or perhaps a donation of $10. Thank you very much. Oh, it's so good. I'm just going to finish off the last little bit of coffee here that I have. Watch it with me now. So good. So good. All right. Bill Linton, Kazintis were in F last turn. Oh, friendly. Yes. So they went up 1, which is good. And if they go up 1 more, then they'll, like I say, make that leap into Tholian. Or I guess in this case, the Kazinti within Fedland, so they'll make the leap into Federation, being part of the Federation. R&D Fed team has been there for a decade plus. Yes. Sorry, that was my disconnect. Voidstar is in the house. Hello, welcome back, Voidstar. You will, speaking of Voidstar, you will notice that his name is still our latest subscriber. That's because there was no traction over the course of the past week. We are still at 255 of our aspiring goal to 500. So if you know anybody who is a fan of all things Star Trek, then please tell 2 friends about this wonderful live stream that we're doing here and potentially wanting to join our family of subscribers to be able to help us get to 500 and just be part of a gaming community that loves to do all things Star Trek strategy and turn-based stuff. Of course, if you are joining us and have seen us a couple times, enjoy what we're doing, then please consider hitting that subscribe button as well. Again, we're just trying to build a community here of people who like to play this game, have fun, do all things Star Trek, sci-fi, and strategy. So if that sounds like you and you like stuff like this, please consider joining our subscriber community. All right, big slow target. Oh, Fed announcement. If Riemann ships do not withdraw from Lyran space in the next cycle, the Federation will consider itself at limited war with the Riemann Empire. Interesting. And send an expeditionary fleet. Interesting. If the Riemann ship do not withdraw from the Federation will consider itself at limited war with the Riemann Empire. Now, here's the thing about this game. So normally in the Federation and Empire standard game, the Federation, I believe, is the only faction that can go to limited war, and they do 4 rounds of limited war and then ramp up to war. In this game, the mechanics are a little bit different in that limited war is used as a mechanic to be able to allow players to be able to go to a war status or elevated economic status when fighting non-player factions like the Flaming Dragon / Green Dragon faction that the Tholians are about to face. So I know that the rules in the original rule set say that the Federation can go to limited war. I would need a little input from the GM at this point. Please, Daniel, jump on in. Don't be shy. To let us know what your thoughts are and how you would interpret that. Because it is true that in the normal game, Federation Empire, the stand-up game, the Federation can go to limited war as a step up to full war status. So we'll have to just map that out and make sure that that's cool. And the reason why, of course, that is in the real game, or the tabletop, is because the Federation is the largest and robust economy. They have the economic capacity to do that. Not only from, I mean, you could argue from a political standpoint, like the structure of their government, but just from an economic standpoint, they have the biggest economy in that way. So that's the rationale, as I understand it, for limited war status in Federation Empire, the tabletop. In this context, I believe that because we're all this is a 4X game, we all start from the same baseline. That same rationale doesn't exist. So we've used limited war in a slightly different way to facilitate the mechanics in this game. Daniel, you let me know. All right, let's round this off here. Just came on Discord. Big Slow Target says, Daniel, a Diplo team has about 10 to 15% chance each turn of convincing a helpful neutral world to join. Interesting. Hydron Coffee, love it. Yeah. I mean, hey, the tentacular skill set of being able to put a little coffee art on my caffeine is phenomenal. They are just so dexterous. You cannot imagine what they can do with those tentacles. All right. Carl, already subbed. Yeah. Big smiley face. Incidentally, I would like to show you the New Worlds chat. I think it's the New Worlds banner subscriber overlay. I will show you what it looks like when a subscriber hits the button. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me show you a subscriber event. That's what it would look like. And Terry, this is a fictional person, would be our latest subscriber. So I just did that to be able to show you what it looks like. That's what a subscriber would look like on this screen. If we were in another screen, that same thing would show up, and away we go. Okay, let's round this off. Daniel, for all empires, limited war is only for fighting monsters in independent worlds. Little note there. Paul Shutter, in the free campaign, anyone can do limited war. Oh, Paul, I apologize. I thought it was only available to the Federation. But then again, it has been 30... Jesus. It's been 30 years since I played the tabletop game. I played it when I was 15. And I didn't play it well. I didn't even understand what I was doing. Crazy. Juggies at the center in DD25, Bill says. Carl, I know exactly what hydrants can do with their tentacles. I've watched hentai. Ooh. All right. Let's digress from that interesting journey of fictional fantasy and move on to the Gorn. Ladies and gentlemen, speaking of things all tentacular, we're now going from the tentacles and the slimy to the scaly and the rough. The Gorn are about to engage the feathered dinosaurs of the Paravians down here in at Glory. My mind is going in terrible directions. I'm going to try and stop. Glory down here, which is a Paravian planet. You can see here there is a light cruiser with a diplomat about to arrive and then begin the discussions and negotiations to get Glory. I'm going to avoid saying those terrible jokes. Okay, so Glory will be there will be discussions to bring it into the fold when it comes to the Gorn. The scales shall meet the feathers, and the two shall meet in between. All right, what else we got here? We've got along the border. Let's take away the ships real quick. We can see that we've got bases. Nothing under construction. So what's interesting to note is no new base construction from the Gorn. But what we do see is an interesting breach along the neutral zone here. Tholian. Exploration, large exploration freighter, granted totally unguarded. There's no military threat here, but they have entered into the free transit zone negotiated between the Romulans and the Gorn. So the question is, was this somehow agreed to with all three factions? You know, big red, little red, and red and white, or you know, what's going on here? We can see that the Romulans, by example, have a healthy representation. If we take away the ships, you can see they fully explored these three hexes with a Orion base appearing right there. So they've got strong representation in the area. So do the Gorn. They have a exploration survey cruiser there. They've got a tug, I'm assuming about to build a base here, and then Vengeance fleet with a survey cruiser. Excuse me, I don't know why I'm so having trouble here. Gorn. Let's see your named fleet. Vengeance has a dreadnought, light cruiser, 3 destroyers, frigate, commando cruiser, and a prime team. So this is not nothing. And they are in the area and could, I mean, everybody could stomp that large exploration freighter. It doesn't have any offensive firepower. You just step on it and it's dead. But interesting that that interaction is occurring. What will happen with the Tholians? Will they get blown out of the water, or will there be some kind of negotiated settlement? We shall have to see. Other than that, nothing else that I can see really here, other than perhaps, as Big Slow Target has suggested, the machinations of the Gorn construction efforts. What are they building and how are they building it is the big question mark. However, I will say there is one other Gorn faction we have not mentioned, which is at the top of the map here above my head, using this finger here. Right up there, you can see there is Strike Fleet. Strike Fleet sitting on this wormhole with a resource here. Now, one of the things that's interesting, and there's this sort of discussion, Strike Fleet is out of supply. Why is that? Because they are on the other side of a wormhole, and assuming that the Gorn do not have the technology to be able to provide supply through a wormhole, it's out of supply. When a ship is out of supply, it can't successfully explore hex. So as long as it is out of supply, it cannot effectively explore that hex. There has been discussion about the fact that there is a resource there and that the resource is somehow providing supply to that ship. That would be incorrect with regards to the rules. The rules talk about supply nodes and supply networks, and that is not a nice, or a supply grid. That does not constitute a supply grid because you need a supply node, i.e. a base, a planet, or something that acts to be able to sort of process the raw goods that come in from whatever supply you're getting. So for example, if it's a resource, let's call it, it's like raw iron ore, you need like a DS9 to be able to process that ore into usable industrial material. And that's what, for example, supply constitutes. It's food, it's fuel, it's weapons. And that's why when you are out of supply from a ship, you can still function, but you can't do all your special stuff. You can't use heavy weapons, which is why your offensive firepower is cut in half. You cannot move the same distance because you're low on fuel. You cannot, do all the special things that a fully capable supply ship can do. However, if and when you see that hex open up, that will tell you that the Gorn then have supply through wormholes, which is a milestone on the technology list. So something to think about. All right. Let's go to the Romulans, pointy ears that they are. So as we talked about, they are pushing into the free transit zone. Here's the question I got to ask is like, now that the Gorn and the Tholians and the Romulans are all kind of poking in the same area, how's that going to work? Are you guys going to mutually build bases in the same places and like have a overlaid, supply infrastructure, or how's that going to work? Because if you guys occupy the same hex and you're not allied, you're going to basically be fighting. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all peppers out. What else we got? We can see that we've got 20th Legion. These are all just exploration legions. So for example, if we look at the Romulan 11th Legion, so we've got legions 11 to 15. 11 will be the top. You can see they have a crippled frigate, cruiser, and prime team, so they're still doing their exploration there. 14th, 2nd, all these guys down here. One interesting note that was pointed out to me the other day is this guy right here. There's another dreadnought in the house. Now, what's interesting about that is, of course, they still have, I believe, in Romulan 1st Legion, their vulture there. So they now have 2 dreadnoughts. And what's interesting about Romulan ships more than any others is that Romulan ships are almost all universally upgradable, meaning you can build them in W, upgrade them to Y, upgrade them to M, upgrade them to GW. I think GW is where it changes. But essentially, from W to M, late M, they're fully upgradable. Or there is some upgrade path that takes them that route. So interesting. And so for the Romulans uniquely, they can build a lot of these ships and they can just continue to upgrade them and make them more and more capable, more offensive firepower and so on. Sometimes their offensive firepower doesn't quite equate to the equivalent in another faction, but they save so much money by upgrading pre-existing ships and having to build and scrap old ones. Scrap old ones, build new ones, I mean. So very, very interesting. What else we got down here? We've got, of course, the continuation of trying to walk, finish out the exploration in the backyard here. I'll move my head to the other side because we're about to switch here. There we go. So you can see the exploration in the sort of the boot, the toe of the boot, if we call this the boot. about. So the bottom, the toe here is getting explored and working that way. And you we'll call this the heel, if you will. And the heel is also getting rounded out. So essentially, the Romulans are doing a great job of mapping out or exploring their backyard, and they are continuing to explore the sort of the top end of their territory. Here's an interesting question for you, my friends. What happens when the Romulans have explored all their territory? All those ships are cruisers with prime teams. What are they going to do with all those cruisers? Now, it's not going to happen next turn. It's not going to happen the turn after. But if they're building more dreadnoughts now, what are they going to use it for? Just a question. I'm not necessarily saying that they're going to do anything bad with them, but it's an interesting thing to think about. Are they preparing for something? Do they have something down the line that they're thinking about? Or are they prepping for the central assault on the Juggernauts? Who knows? We'll have to see. Interesting. All right. Back on the attack. All right. So here we go. Again, last couple things, we'll notice that we have a YBS, not a YBS, a YWB, Y-Air Warbird, just sitting here in the neutral zone, which I gotta say is an interesting location. It feels like this is a waypoint for convoys, which is fair, if that's what that is. It is a strange location, though, because the Klingons, as we're swapping commercial convoys back and forth, the Klingons have a base station right here. This was part of the negotiated settlement way back when. They had a Romulan base that had been built there. We took ownership of it, and so on and so forth. So we have this base here. It operates as a perfect waypoint for the. My brain will kick in a moment. The commercial convoy, so it moves to, it stops there, and then moves to, goes to F46 by example, and then moves to and goes to this YDK. Yeah, it just it seems like a strange spot for that WB. It's not overly threatening, but I mean, for example, let's just look at Second Legion. So Second Legion is you can see 2 warbirds and a kingbird. So at the end of the day, if these guys wanted to just pop over the border and blow something out of the water, they could. They could easily just blow out a base. They could even just go take Nippon if they wanted to. Obviously, if they did that, there would be significant repercussions. But at this point, they could do that. Here's an interesting note just for the economic advantage of not doing that, and why I don't think that's a viable option. When you make a commercial convoy, at this point in the M era, for the Klingons and the Y era for the Romulans, assuming they're still in the Y area, but regardless, Y or M, it's the same. You build a commercial convoy for half the price that it gives you. So, for example, you would build them for 2.5 EP, send them to their destination. When they arrive at their destination, they deliver 5 EP to the recipient. So if I'm building one for 2.5 EP and I send it to the Romulans, they get 5 EP. They build one for 2.5 EP, they send it to me, they get 5 EP. That's a 2.5 EP profit on that exchange. And we're doing it relatively continually. Based on this, we can execute one trade mission using strategic movement every, the Klingons can execute one every year. The Romulans have to execute it every 18 months. But, yeah. So that's interesting. If the Klingons, for example, turned this base here in Echo 48 into a YDK, then it could happen in a year. They would move it 2 to this location and then 2 to there. But that back and forth doesn't occur if you're at war, and you're basically making 1.25 EP a turn if you average it out after you take away the cost. So if that's what you're making, it doesn't make sense to take the planet, because if you took Nippon by example, it only gives you 1 EP. it's a developing planet. When you cripple it, it only gives you 1 EP, and then way down the line, it'll eventually give you 2. The only advantage is the military advantage of it being a supply point, which would only be advantageous to you if you were expecting to do a little bit more of a military campaign. But based on the numbers as they are, that doesn't seem likely. Anyway, that's just my over-analysis of that. I see lots of chitter-chatter. Let's talk about what's going on. Okay. Oh, goodness. Yeah. Just be careful about what your comments are saying. I'm getting a notification through YouTube that some of these comments are not meeting YouTube guidelines. So I've had to hide a comment or two. I apologize, but just be careful about the things that you're putting out there. What do we got here? Carl, I pay 2 EPs as a penalty to the YouTube empire. Ooh, my goodness, there's so much chatter here. Okay, hold on. You can't be petty. Loving the content. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Petty. Thank you very much. Hey, PG or the morality police will get you. My bad. Joking. I pay 2 EP as a penalty to the YouTube empire, Carl says. It's coffee from the new Hydrax. It's all good. It's filling your chest and growing your hairs. There you are. I see the Gorn are aggressively thrusting into the glory wormhole. See, I tried to stay away from this colorful commentary, but no, you guys are being too funny. Eugene, is there an Orion base near Gorn Strike Fleet? Could they buy supply from them to explore? Yes, they could. So let's go right back to that real quick. There is a Orion base right here. Let's take away the ships real quick. This Orion base, you could theoretically make a deal with Orions to provide you supply, and if you did, they could provide you supply. So that's something that's doable. It's something you could absolutely do. Dell. Oh, hold on. Technically, yes. Jim, there used to be. The Northern Alliance blew it up. Go visit Siri, Bill says. Dell, we got the tech from the purchased it from a nice man in a spaceship around the dark side of the moon. Carl, go on vacation to Disneyland, obviously. Carl, that's me. Sorry, guys. Ex-Army sense of humor. We'll rein it in. Yeah, I'm right there with you. The Navy talk or Jack speak sometimes can get a little naughty, a little salty around the edges, and YouTube doesn't like that. All right, let's go back to the map. I'm going to take a quick sip of water as we transition here. Let's talk about the Klingons. All right, so there was an interesting commentary that came up the other day, and I wanted to take a minute to highlight it. So let's talk about the Carnarvon Klingon border. So let's put a spotlight on what's going on and talk about it. So if we go back several years, here I'll come back here as I talk about it. If we go back several years, we know that there was a war that was occurring between the Romulans and the Klingons. And in that war, basically, the Klingons, did the cardinal sin of throwing everything they had on that front or that side of the empire and attacking the Romulans. The Romulans did the same thing with me. So we were throwing everything we had at each other, and we were totally zeroed in and focused on each other. At that time, the Carnarvon decided to cross the border and take some territory. And to be fair, at that time, they could have taken more. They probably could have taken a lot more, but they only took a small amount and then they stopped. However, in that moment, there was a vulnerability in my strategy that was laid out. One, I left myself open to being attacked through the back door and backstabbed, and it happened. So after that occurred, I vowed as a player never to let that happen again. So along this border, at the time, there were 2 fleets that were positioning themselves here. There was Wolfpack 1 and Coyote Band 1. Now, you can still see Coyote Band 1 is right here, and Wolfpack 1, I think, was on the planet. It was either on the planet or on the base, or one of the two. And between those 2 fleets, they weren't insignificant, but they were reasonable. The Klingons, by consequence, put Joint Task Force Bravo on this base right here, which met the conditions of our peace treaty, which was within the basically 2 X's back from the border, and away we go. Now, Joint Task Force Bravo was contributed to or added to based on the sort of the balance of what was going on there. And the composition of that fleet was to allow for a lot of low command factor ships and one or two high command factor ships. Why? Like one or two cruisers and a whole bunch of destroyers and frigates. Why? Because frigates and destroyers can't control a lot of ships in a battle line. They can only control maybe 4 or 5 depending on the ship. And that means they can't necessarily they're not very effective at attacking fixed targets like bases, but they are good at defending them because the base themselves can act as the command platform and defend them. So they're good at defense. They're not great for offense. They can be used for offense, but not great. You need a cruiser, command cruiser, or dreadnought to be able to provide the 8, 9, or 10 command factor to be able to really flush out that battle line and give you the sort of offensive firepower to be able to take out a base or a fixed structure, right? So I'm going to use a feature here in Vassal called Compots. And I'm going to show you something when it comes to Joint Task Force Bravo. Now, it's taken a second to think because, Vassal's really fast. There we are. So Joint Task Force Bravo, and I'll show it to you visually first, and then I'll show you the math. Joint Task Force Bravo, Beta, excuse me. This is what it looks like. You got a command cruiser, a W-era cruiser, 9... 11 destroyers, 7 frigates, and there's a crippled frigate in there just because I forgot to repair it. So basically you've got 8 frigates, 11 destroyers, a W-era cruiser, and a Y-era command cruiser. Not crazy, but, not nothing. Now let's look at the offensive and defensive firepower of that fleet. So if we scroll down, and we're going to look for J in the process here. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. J, Joint Task Force Beta. Okay, so you probably can't see this on your screen, but I'm going to illustrate it for you. So Joint Task Force Beta is made up of a total of 21 ship equivalents. That's 21 ships. It has a total attack factor, the fleet itself, of 55 and a defense factor of 77. Keep in mind those numbers, 55 and 77. That's the attack and defense of that fleet. That fleet, until very recently, was sitting right here on the border with the Carnarvon as a defensive fleet to make sure the Carnarvon never backstabbed me ever again. And it was particularly a balance to Coyote Band 1. Let's look at Coyote Band 1. Now, there's been some movement of ships back and forth, but currently, anyway, Coyote Band 1 is a total of 13 ships with 35 attack and 55 defense. So my fleet, although not offensively capable in the sense of has 1 command cruiser and a W-era cruiser, not a lot of command factors there, and mostly just destroyers and frigates, was sitting on my side of the neutral zone well away from the border, and the Coyote Band had what it has now, although it's a little different. But basically Coyote Band, where are you? There, has 13 ship equivalents, 35, 55, right? So until very recently, Joint Task Force Beta was bigger, badder, and more of a threat than Coyote Band 1. Fair? Now, where is JTFB now? JTFB is up here. As I've discussed with the Carnarvon and the Hydrons, it's going up the FTZ. We are building bases. Let me show you. I've got a YBS under construction here and a YBS under construction here. November 37 and November 35. These 2 bases are being constructed as per our plan to be able to move stuff up the FTZ. Fair? And of course, JTFB is right there. So we'll bring back the ships and show that. Now, let's show you the point of concern. It was brought up to me most recently. Tony, what's all this business over here? Well, as I've previously discussed with the Carnarvon, I'm moving a whole bunch of ships over in this area to be able to explore this. And of course, I still need to maintain my little buffer to make sure that I don't get backstabbed again. So the concern specifically was South Fleet. So I'll show you what South Fleet is. And basically that's my M. Let's find South Fleet on the list here. South Fleet. So that's my M fleet. So let me show you South Fleet. There we go. All right, so let's put this here. South Fleet. We have a D6M, So M-era cruiser, again, 8 command factors. And we have 6, 7, 8 total frigates, these E4Ms. 4 attack, 3 defense. So put that into context. Total of 9 ships. They have a 39 attack and a 31 defense. So because of the E4Ms having a slightly bigger attack than defense, they overrepresent with attack factors. But from experience, they don't last very long in a fight. It's very irritating. So South Fleet has 9 ships, 39 attack, 31 defense. I just want to point that out in comparison to Coyote Band 1, where we are, which has 35, 55. Now, granted, it's a Y-era fleet versus a M-era fleet. I get you. But 13 ships versus 9 ships, 35 attack versus, what was it again? 39 and 31 defense versus 55 defense. So if we balance that out, my argument is South Fleet isn't very threatening because the Carnivons are over-indexing on their ability to easily defend themselves if they want to defend themselves, if they need to defend themselves, rather. And, of course, if they want to reach out and hurt me, this fleet has the ability to be able to move out and engage or intercept them in some way. And right now, because of the way take away the ships here real quick, and the bases, you can see that there's these 2 funnels of, we'll call them vectors of attack, that are open. So like they're based here, they can come through this way and they can come through this way. But because just the way the logistics are right now, and because I'm exploring over in this corner, that's where the ships are based. And so they could intercept anything coming through here. Obviously, I'm vulnerable right now. If the Carnivon wanted to pound through this opening, they could blow out this base, and they could position themselves to go further into Klingon space if they wanted to. However, in the macro, I think that the Carnivon has some other things to deal with, and so that might be a concern. So anyways, that was an interesting debate that came up yesterday, and I found it particularly, what's the word? Let's just say there was, I think the terminology is beggars can't be choosers. I was offering, and as part of the discussion, I was to help the Carnivon and the Hydrons, and my help was being questioned. What, like, why are you putting your ships there? You should put them there. And then I pointed out the numbers of the whole situation. Anyways, I just thought it was interesting because it was like, it was very, it was a very entertaining conversation and a part of that debate. So I thought it might be useful to be able to talk about that here and get your thoughts about that and what's going on there. So anyways, that's what's all going on there. Very interesting. And of course, like I said, there's exploration happening in that corner. Let's polish off the Klingons just to finish off the Klingons, and then we'll move into the Northern and Southern Alliance. We talked about, in the news, we talked about the establishment of Cadia. So what is Cadia? So for those of you who remember or know from Warhammer 40K, Cadia is the planet that borders or like was the bulwark against the Eye of Terror. The Eye of Terror was this rip in time and space that went between real space and the warp. So it's kind of like a wormhole. So when I took the colony ship and I turned a resource into a colony, it seemed appropriate to call, especially with my faction, to call that planet Cadia. And so that's what we are. We have Cadia right here on the Klingon end of the wormhole with Joint Task Force Alpha, a Tug, and of course R&D team doing their thing in a YDK. So very, actually, let's look at that real quick and I'll show you JTFA. I show you guys so much of my turn. It's like nothing is secret anymore. So I've got, again, a couple of cripple ships. I put a brand new destroyer in there, but we'll repair those ships. So we'll have a total of 4 destroyers in this hex. And then, of course, 2 cruisers, 1 command cruiser, 1 not cruiser. So very much sort of in line with what the Federation has on their side. They have 5 frigates and 2 cruisers. Right now I have 4 destroyers and 2 cruisers. All of them except for 1 crippled. And of course, there is actually another E2 here. Correction, an E1 here. So there's a W-era frigate there as well. So generally speaking, from a balance perspective, it's very similar to what the Federation has on their side. So we're sort of equally balanced in that regard. But that's pretty much it. Nothing too much, nothing too new and or crazy. You can see that we've got some exploration ships clearing out the fog of war on this border. Again, some continuing exploration here as we kind of move our way up towards the center. And then, of course, there is Carnarvon space. All right, so let me come back to the chat real quick. I know there's going to be commentary about what I was just talking about. Let's talk about real quick. All right, big slow target. Response to the feds from the Remans. The fleet in question was hit by a storm, knocking out navigation. We are in talks with the Lyran people about this situation. However, we do not know you, Federation, and will destroy you like any other aggressor. Bill Smith, looks like Coyote Band 1 is the badness, Bill says. Yeah, but look at Coyote Band 1. Okay, we did that. Y versus M +1 Burr favor Klingons. True. However, keep in mind that if the Burr goes up, the Carnarvons can use their heel nippers, which are basically 1-point maulers that can target and destroy ships. It is bad news if you have high Burr. Task Force Gamma is also in the area. That is very true. So Task Force Gamma primarily is a whole... let me... I'll show you... Come right back to the map. So you can see here, this is Joint Task Force Gamma. This is sitting on top of a YDK, a couple hexes back from the border. And there's basically 10 destroyers there. Again, defensive bulwark against anything that's going on. And of course, we can move them around to be able to buffer anything else. Again, never again shall I be backstabbed. That is the mission statement here. What else we got? Bill, several drone bombardment ships. That work like maulers, 1-to-1 point damage. Yeah, so here's another thing. The Carnarvon have a very interesting fleet dynamic because they have drone bombardment ships. Now, at the moment, as I understand it, they can only use it against fixed targets like bases. And that's just that's a technology thing. So if they're attacking a base, they can spend money to fire missiles, basically space missiles, and destroy bases. So that's really bad from my perspective, in the sense of if I'm defending against those drone bombardment ships, that's not good. So approach battles whenever I can take them. But yes, Carnarvon ships, when they're attacking, can use those drone bombardment missiles to be able to blow out bases, and that's no good. No bueno, mes amis. Mixing my languages there. Eugene, are we forgetting about the legendary E1 captain who has sole-handedly held off Coyote Band, leaving South Fleet free to roam? Is South Fleet even necessary with E1 holding the gate? Fair point, Eugene. I mean, after all, when you have heroic captains like the E1 captain just holding back the avalanche of Carnarvon aggression single-handedly, I mean, if you have Superman, why do you need the rest of the Justice League? Really? That's what we're saying. Eugene, if the FTZ is for transportation, why 2 hexes and not 3 or 4 spacing? Fair question. In my experience, I have always... so, for example, we're talking about creating a supply vector channel, if you will, up to the Remans and the IC, who are the 1 and 3 ranked fleets in the game. From attack and defense factors, they are 1 and 2. So effectively, this FTZ would lead up to the Remans first, and they have the biggest fleet in the game. They double the size of ships, like number of ships. They have more ships than I do. They have twice as many ships as I do. They have attack factors equal to my defense, or twice my defense factor. So repair is going to be a big thing. So why do I do the 2? Because it allows me to be able to build out YDKs as I go, and allows me the fallback position if, for example, they blew out a base of mine and there was a 4-hex range between them, and I only have... Ladies and gentlemen, Wayne Dan has donated. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I am out of coffee right now, but I shall swig some agua. Thank you very much, Wayne. Woo! Love it. Thank you very much. Coffee, coffee, coffee. Bring it on. Yeah, so the 2 hex thing with the special sensor diamond on bases that allows you the extended reaction range. So I can have ships that are mutually supportive but not within the direct firing line of let's say the Remans in this case, but also the Remans could blow out a base, and if I have another base 2 hexes back, there's the mutually supportive extended reaction range, and then of course I'm not completely left out to lunch when it comes to my supply, because if there's only a 4 hex spacing between those bases, then if I go 4 hexes at the edge of my supply, assuming 4 hex supply, then I'm stuck out in the dark, so to speak. I'm left stranded, and I don't have supply to be able to attack him. So I need that redundancy to make sure that if for whatever reason I lose a base, that I've still got the backup to support me. Make sense? I feel like I'm going to sneeze here in a second, because excuse me. Bill says, because Wonder Woman is hot. Why do you need the rest of the Justice League? Fair point. Del, we view the FTZ as an XP conveyor belt. See? There you go. It's all about just me funneling ships up to the Remans for them to destroy. That's essentially what they're saying. It's good stuff. Good times. Woo-hoo! All right. Let's talk about the Northern and Southern Alliance. All right, let's start with the Carnivon into the Hydron, and then we'll finish off with the ISC and the Remans on top. Again, mind going in a terrible direction. Okay, so we talked about the border with the Klingons. Let's talk about the border and the area around the Hydrons. So let's talk about, and we'll focus in on the area around the homeworlds. So just as a recap, we'll take away the bases real quick. We've got this wormhole here. We've got a planet or colony here. We've got the new Hydron capital, which is a colony planet here with a Hydron and Carnivon YDK. It looks like the YDK is about to be finished. So the YDK was getting an upgrade, or the YBS was getting an upgrade to YDK. So I'm assuming by the end of this turn, it will be complete. So we've got essentially, by the time everything happens, we've got a soon to be completed YDK on the Hydron side, and of course for the Carnivon. So that's the base infrastructure there. And then from the Carnivon side, we have this channel of bases going up to the top left. And then for the Hydrons, we have a couple bases, sort of like the front line, we'll call it here, with a couple of them with the SIDS damage each. And then, 2 other bases here. And these basically connect the infrastructure. I believe the Hydrons, the Hydrons have supply 4, so they don't need this base to be able to connect everybody, but of course the more bases the better for repair and all that other business. So that's good. And so that's what the base infrastructure looks like right now. For context, that means that the Hydrons supply menu, set supply at 4, and supply menu for the Hydrons. This is what the supply looks like for the Hydrons. So this is how far they can reach and still be in supply, not including extended supply, just their fixed bases. So this is what that looks like. Let's add on top of that. Now, granted, it's going to be supply 4 because that's what it's going to look like. Let's add on top of that the Carnivon, and that's what the Carnivon can reach as well. So basically what we're talking about are these 2 sort of bubbles of supply that they can reach out to. So essentially it's very, very similar, and it's very similar to where this FTZ is. It's a good marker to use as far how far they can reach. So that gives you a context of how far out the Carnivon can attack and then retrograde back to their bases by example. So let's get rid of that supply for the Hydrons and supply for the Carnivon, and we'll come back with the ships and the bases. All right, so what do we got? We've got a number of fleets. So we've got Iron 5th, 4th, and Xenon fleet, which are Hydron, up sort of near the edge of their supply. We've got a concentration of fleets here on the YDK, and then sort of 4 deployed here. So let's look at the ones at the YDK first. We've got Fox 1, Fox Skulk 1, Home Fleet. Those are the 2 big fleets. So Carnivon, Fox Skulk 1, which is the top one here. That's a big fleet. And Home Fleet. So Carnivon, Home Fleet. Okay, this is not nothing. Wow. Okay. So assuming they have the YDK there, they can repair. Let's just see if I flip those, yeah, those 2 each. So they can repair 4 of these frigates, of which there are 5. So they can repair most of the ships that are in that hex. Once repaired, they will have 2 YDNs, a YCC, 4 CAs, 3 drone bombardment cruisers, 6 YCLs, 2 drone bombardment destroyers, 1 non-crippled destroyer, and there's 2 crippled ones there. And then they'll have, they have a group of 6 here. So there's 9 frigates and then 4. So they've got 13 frigates plus 4 that they could have a total of 17 frigates repaired, plus all that other stuff. So that is a significant task force. Just the Carnarvon alone. That is very, very significant. Once they're in the right position, that fleet is going to beat the crap out of whatever they come across. Granted, we have seen the ISC and the Riemann mount fleets that are comparable and certainly could go toe-to-toe. But let's call a spade and say that for the Carnarvon, that is a really good concentration of force. It's going to make it if they were to be attacked and they're defending, a very hard target to take out. And they just got a lot of good potential there. Now, let's look at their second, which is Wolfpack 1 and Foxgull 2. So Foxgull 2 is the second row here. So you can see it's a CC, DD, and it looks like 4 FFs. But they also have Wolfpack 1. So let's look up Carnarvon Wolfpack 1. Okay. So basically this row and this row. So we've got a cruiser, drone bombardment cruiser, destroyer, drone bombardment destroyer. 3 other destroyers, so 4 destroyers and a total of 4 plus 3, so 7 frigates. So certainly nowhere near the same offensive firepower as what's based on their homeworld, but not nothing. And of course, they've got a DD they can repair at that YBS. I'm assuming it's a 2-point repair, and they'll be good to go. So there's a lot of potential here for them to be able to reach out and do something. So the Carnarvon are in a good position based on the distribution of their ships to cause some significant pain to anyone who comes looking for it. But as we talked about last week and has been illustrated this week in the lack of interaction between the Riemann ISC alliance and the Carnarvon Hydron alliance, they're kind of out of range for each other. So they're not actually attacking each other. So that's something to think about. Let's look at the Hydron component. We've got Iron 5th, 4th, and Xenon. Now, Xenon is an exploration fleet, but let's pull up Hydron Iron Fleet, which is metal fleets, I believe. Iron Fleet cruiser and 2 frigates. And then we'll pull up 4th and 5th. So Hydron 4th, Hydron 5th. Okay, so they're basically the same thing. They're all the same thing. They are a CC with 2 frigates. So 1, 2, 3 CCs and 6 frigates, basically lined up this way. They have a backup of is that a tug? Yeah, Famine, which is a tug. Come on now, play nice. Tug and a frigate, another tug and frigate there. So they would provide potentially extended supply, which would allow 4th and 5th to reach out and cause damage. They've got a bunch of crippled Vols here. And then, of course, Iron Fleet, which again is that CC. So really what we're talking about here is these are just kind of like, for lack of a better way to describe it, speed bumps. These fleets are positioned in such a way to pin and filter out ships as the Riemanns might be coming down to cause damage. And basically, they're designed to pin other ships as they're coming down and distract them from what they would do. That's basically it. We've got Second Fleet here. I'm curious what Second Fleet might be. I have a feeling it's an exploration fleet. Oh, no. So we got a Dreadnought, a CC, a DD, and a Vol. So not crazy, but not nothing. And that fleet could move to be able to support anything. Important to note that the Carnarvon, the Hydron have initiative over the Northern Alliance of the IC and the Riemann, so they'll move first. So important to note. So that'll be interesting. And then, of course, Hydron New Fleet. I feel like there's a hidden fleet of Hydron forces here somewhere. Hydron New Fleet. No, DN and 4 frigates. Okay, well, that's what's there. And, of course, Cobalt and Argon are continuing to explore. So there's, basically these fleets here all seem to be protecting assets like bases and things, and then providing a screen to be able to engage or reduce the effectiveness of any Riemann attack coming from the northwest. So that's kind of like what it looks like right now. What do you think? What do you think is going to happen with the Riemann and the ISC as they come down south? We shall discuss the Riemann and ISC right now, but interesting dynamic when it comes to those two. Let's go back to the map. All right, so let's talk about the Riemann first, and then we'll go to the ISC just in this area. So the Riemanns have an interesting spread of ships. We've got the KE2, a bunch of KE2s, a tug, which is interesting, and another KE2, but that's a captured one that belongs to the Tholians, and then one here. So basically we have a screen of like frigates, nothing crazy. Columbia fleet. Riemann Columbia fleet. What's going on there? As you can see, that is a hammer. Is that 4? 4 cruisers, 6, 12, 17 frigates, 3, 4, 7, 17 destroyers, 7 frigates, and 2 crippled frigates with 4 cruisers. That fleet alone is going to, and has the potential to annihilate everything in this area. Now, the only problem is repair. Let's take away the ships real quick. Notice the lack of repair capacity in the area. Now, maybe that's what that tug is going to do. It's going to build a base and extend their supply reach and so on and so forth. And maybe it's just going to provide extended supply. The problem about tugs providing extended supply is that they are not a retrograde point, meaning you attack and then you fall back. In a fixed supply situation, like you have a base or a planet, you can retreat back to, or what's called retrograde movement, you can fall back to that position. With a tug or a convoy providing you extended supply, you can't. You attack and you may fall out of, like you may retreat out of the hex, but you can't then move back to a more secure position. You're stuck where you are, which is probably forward deployed and potentially vulnerable. So that's something to think about when it comes to Columbia fleet. Are they going to incrementally reach out, like move themselves forward, or is there something else going on there? We'll have to see. Also, if I am the Hydrons and I move first, I'm going to use Iron 5th and 4th to like 1, 2. I'm going to attack that tug. That tug's a high, that tug is a high value asset. It's the only tug in the area. It provides extended supply and can build bases. So if I'm the Hydrons, I'm going to target it. And the way Columbia fleet is, because it doesn't have a scout, because they don't have scouts yet, it only has a 1 hex reaction range. So the Iron fleet could go 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's nothing Columbia fleet can do about it. Of course, they can do something after, and we'll see. But I mean, it just it's a very vulnerable position there. Yeah, so we'll have to see. Oh, there is another tug. There is another tug up here by this base. And this base can Pacific Fleet can do extended reaction to what's ever there. Let's do a quick look at, was Pacifica. So Pacifica Fleet is 3 destroyers, 2 frigates. So those ships could go defend it and could screen the tug retreating if need be. And considering the fleet, the assets the Hydrons could send against it, I don't know that they would be able to completely wipe out the screening fleet before the tug fell back, but it's worth trying. I would say we're trying. So basically what we're saying is that the Riemanns are in a position to set themselves up for reaching out and hurting the Hydrons, but the Hydrons are definitely in a position to be able to, stub the toe of the Riemanns and cause them to stumble in that process. But with the 2 tugs in the area, I think the Riemanns are well positioned to start beefing up their infrastructure, like turning that YBS into a YDK and building a base here in Oscar 26. Like start building up that supply so you can get down and start causing problems for the Hydrons. Let's talk about the ISC. The ISC real quick. They've got a ton in the... Oh, geez. Hold on. Riemann still have Athena and Cerberus in the area. Cerberus and Athena. Is it Athena? Yeah, there it is. Athena. So these 2 fleets are not crazy, but they're not nothing. We've got a total of 2 destroyers and 6 frigates. 6 frigates and 4... Oh, those are cruisers. 4 cruisers, a command cruiser, 5 cruisers, and a dreadnought. So combined, Cerberus and Athena are not insignificant. That's 8 destroyers, 5 cruisers, a dreadnought. Yeah, that's a lot there, and they could reach out and do some damage, especially to some of these crippled ships, and take some resources for sure, and set themselves up for a forward deployed sort of aggressive attack against the Carnivon and the Hydrons. I'm going to talk about that in just a second, but let's talk about the ISC. The ISC have Order Fleet there. ISC named echelons. Order. So Order is a cruiser, a total of, 7 light cruisers, 4 destroyers, a tug, and a marshal team. So not the craziest fleet we've ever seen from them, but certainly not nothing. And then, of course, in the planet right beside, they have Enforcement and Truth, which are the big knuckle draggers here. We've got Dreadnought with a prime team, command cruiser with a prime team, cruiser, another 6 light cruisers, commando tug or commando cruiser, and another 5 destroyers. So that Truth fleet is significant. And then there's Enforcement, which is Dreadnought, cruiser, 6 light cruisers, 7 destroyers, and frigates. So hold on, let's just add up those light cruisers. 6 and 6. That's 12 light cruisers, 7 and 5. 7 and 5. So another 12 destroyers, 12 light cruisers, 12 destroyers, 2 dreadnoughts, 2 cruiser and a command cruiser. 2 cruisers and a command cruiser. That fleet, those 2 fleets alone, could go toe-to-toe with what the Carnivons have. And it would be a bloody fight. But if you include the Remans as well with Cerberus, that's going to be a very difficult fight for the Carnivon to win. But it will be bloody for both sides regardless. It seems as though, keeping in mind that there is some repair going on in the back end here, we've got Justice, which is the command cruiser and collection of 5 destroyers. And then we've got 3rd Fleet back here, ISC 3rd Fleet, which is a whole bunch of crippled. So CC, 2 CAs, 3 CLs, and 4 DDs. So we've got a lot of repairs going on in the background. But this collection of ships, certainly, if you weigh it, there's more offensive firepower on the Riemann ISC side than the Carnivon Hydron side, and the Carnivon Hydron side don't have the same capacity as those two to be able to build stuff and get it down in theater. Let's finish off with the back end for both. We've got Triton Fleet and Atlantis Fleet heading down for the Riemann side. Triton and, come on now, Atlantia. That's Atlantia, isn't it? Yeah. So basically what we're seeing here, like we've mentioned before, we've got 2 build cycles, 1 cruiser, 3 destroyers, 3 frigates, and then 3 destroyers, 3 frigates working their way down south. Those are 2 build cycles, and they're making their way down ASAP. We've got Solar Fleet here, which for the Remans probably another cruiser and Solaria. There we are. Again, another full build cycle, cruisers, destroyers, and frigates making their way down. So we can see that the Remans continue to do full build cycles of 7 ships and or 6 ships, depending on the fall or spring, and are just pumping that stuff down into this area of operation. By contrast, the ISC, it would seem as though they're not doing the same build cycles, because I don't see, unless they're doing strat moves straight. So let's take a look here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 is, unless they have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Unless, if they have still 1.5 strat move, then they can only go to XX20 with a strat move for all their new builds. So I would expect to see all the new builds here in X-Ray 20, unless they're moving them somewhere else. And so I'm not seeing from the ISC side major build cycles the way I'm seeing it from the Remans. However, as we know, the ISC have entered into their war fatigue, so they're only getting about 75% of their income, whereas the Remans are not, and they're making full. Now, the Remans can only produce so much. The ISC, I would argue, need to maintain the flow of fresh ships into the theater so they can overwhelm the Carnivon and the Hydrants. But to be fair, the way it is right now, there's still an imbalance, and we're going. Now, we've talked about the entire map. Let's talk about, real quick, the center of the map and what's going on. Okay. let's talk about the Juggernauts and bring this home. As you can see, there is a BATS station here. Before it was discovered, this was showing up as a stabilized SC3, size class 3, stabilized warp signature, which is exactly what we see over on the edge of Tholian space. This location has also, after it's been discovered, has seen a fleet pop up. Now, this is Juggernaut home fleet. So if we go up to minor fleets and we go to Juggernauts and we look at home fleet, what do we see? We see a cruiser, which with that little plus sign on it means it's a Mauler, an 8 light cruiser, straight 8, 3 destroyers, and 6 frigates. So this is a step up from the previous fleets that we've seen. I think previously we saw 2 destroyers and 3 frigates respectively, along with a cruiser and a light cruiser. So this is 2 more destroyers and another squadron or another 3 frigates. A lot more firepower coming from the Juggernauts. Question. We'll have to see what the answer is. Is this fleet purely defensive, or are they going to reach out and touch the people who discovered them? Don't know the answer to that. However, what we can see from the current disposition is my original theory was, because we don't know for sure, only the GM knows this, my original theory was that the Juggernauts were doing the classic 2-hex build cycle, and that this is probably the edge of their territory, which strikes me as being probably 6 hexes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Charlie 28 is also almost the exact center of the map and is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hexes away from the other stabilized warp signature. If we assume a mathematical hexagon pattern at a 2-hex interval for bases, this works perfectly. Charlie 28 would be where their homeworld is, and we should expect to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a base in Charlie 22. We should also expect to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, perhaps something around India 27, India 29, maybe. Certainly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Certainly see something in India 31. And for the Klingons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We should be seeing something in Charlie 34. For the Gorn, Romulan, and Tholians, we can expect 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whiskey 31 will most likely be their closest point of approach, or where they will encounter, most likely, their first Juggernaut base. So all this is tying in with the data we have. At the very beginning of the game, as we launched the campaign, there was this promise, this idea that the center of the map held riches beyond wonder, that there was technology and resources there that outstripped anything else. What is that going to look like? Is it really there? And if there is something there, what's defending it? We know the Juggernauts are GW Tech, which is a light year. Well, it is a milestone ahead of even the most advanced factions in the game right now at MTech. So MTech and GW ships, obviously the gap is different than Y, but there is a real big difference between GW and M ships, especially depending on the faction. By example, their cruisers, the Juggernaut cruisers, are maulers, which can do crazy amounts of damage to special high-value ships. What's that going to look like as we go forward? How many Juggernaut ships are defending that core area around the perimeter? And how are other factions going to be able to mobilize forces to be able to engage the Juggernaut faction? Who knows? But it's very interesting to see. The more we get these touch points, these data points as to where the Juggernauts are, how that's all going to work out. Very, very interesting. I know that as the Klingons, I'm looking forward to getting in there and stirring the pot with those dastardly Juggernauts. What do you think? What do you think we should do with the Juggernauts? Do you think the entire map should align and destroy them in the center? Do you think that we should fight over the resources that are potentially there? Is it going to be a struggle like a King of the Hill kind of thing? Or is something else going to go down? Who knows? You tell me what you think while I take a sip of water here, and then we're going to go through the chat and round this out. Let me take a quick sip. All right. All right. Bill has an idea. Okay, let's go in here. There's some interesting questions here already. All right, Eugene, Bill, because Wonder Woman is hot. Dell XP conveyor belt. Carl, are the ISC allowed to use echelon formations? The answer is yes. However, it is a technology. So as we go to the tech tree, I'm going to let me pull up the early years campaign information, and I will show that to you. Just give me a second as it pops up here. I didn't have it ready to go necessarily. All right, let me take you to our early years information table here. I'll zoom in here in a second. Let me just get to the tech tree. There we go. All right, so for a tech tree, let me see. I think it's in command and control. Here it is. So I'll zoom in. So for command and control, you can see, I'll move it over a little bit easier. Whoop. So you can see in command and control, which is a line of technology, you've got echelon formation, which is only for the ISC. This is a tech that's normally available at year 160. Now, this is a technology, as you can see at the top here, that is required for GW tech. You can see here, you need 2 reserve fleet, which is this milestone right here. And so if you can get that milestone, that means at GW tech, you've achieved echelon formation if you're the ISC. But it's a GW tech. The ISC are currently at Y tech. Maybe they're getting close to M tech, but they're nowhere near GW. So in order for them to get there, they'll need to, they have quite a ways to go to be able to get to that point. So just from a technology perspective, that gives you a sense of echelons and some of the different battle formations that are available to increase your offensive firepower in any particular round of combat. So hopefully that helps. Let's see. Ooh, geez, more chat. Bill, ISC have to have PPD tech to use echelons. PPD. I don't know what PPD is off the top of my head. That is that circle icon on their counter. So according to, I'd have to look into the rule because it talks about the echelon formation as being part of 324. According to our reference within the early years campaign information table, the only prerequisite for the ISC is just that they do the tech for it, and that they are the ISC and they can get echelon formation. So I'm assuming that PPD tech is just it comes with GW tech, and of course you have to be the ISC. So we'll have to see. I don't know what PPD tech is in the tech tree. PPD equipped ships are shown with the black circle. Yep, yeah. I faced the ISC and echelons against the player who's playing the Tholians. I was the Paravians. He was the ISC. He had GW tech. I had late M era, and he just wiped the floor with me. I just couldn't even compete. The ships were so good. It was ridiculous. Echelon is late M tech, same as battle group. So like I mentioned, it's actually GW tech that you need to get to. Eugene, fight the Juggies, divide and conquer them. Eugene's all about killing the Jugs. So let's see. Unite the divided empires with a common enemy, possibly, unless they have been putting points into R&D every turn. Plasmatic Pulsar Device is what PPD stands for. Thank you, Bill. All right, everybody. All right, let's, where are we at? Let's do a quick summary. So what have we seen today? We've seen the treasure trail on the west side of the map, which, as Bill Linton, the Federation player, has described, is a logistics negotiated, a diplomatic settlement to be able to provide an ability for different factions to trade between the Lyrans and the Gorn. I find that an interesting cover story. Let's see those trade convoys go through, because they will just travel such a long distance unprotected. It would be a shame if pirates were to get in the way. So we'll see how that works. So we talked about the treasure trail. We've talked about the discovery of the Juggernaut bases around the perimeter of the center. There is, so Bill thinks it's in DD25, which let me just quickly pull up the map, DD25. So if Charlie 28 is this hex, DD25 is this hex. So just think about that from a mathematical distribution. These bases don't line up with DD25. They map up perfectly with Charlie 28. And when we go to the very bottom of the map, it's a 57 top to bottom map. Charlie is the center column. And so if you look at 57, 27 and a half is maybe the middle mark. So 28. So Charlie 28 seems like a logical center point versus Delta 25. But who knows? Maybe it's off center. Maybe it's throwing us for a loop. You would never know. Never know. We'll have to see. All right. Okay, so we've seen the treasure trail. We've talked about the Lyrans, and now they're at war status. What are they going to do? How are they going to deal with the Remans? Are the Remans going to back off, or is this just a ploy to bring them into war status to prepare them for an assault against their neighbors? Are they going to fight the Federation? Are they going to go through the wormhole and attack the Carnivon? What is going to happen? Certainly, if they went through the wormhole, that would be more headaches for the Carnivon that they don't need. But could they go to war with the Remans? The Remans are preoccupied with their fight down south. Do they really have enough ships to deal with a Lyran advance? What is that going to look like? The Remans and the IC continue their consolidation of forces as they prepare to move south. And when you weigh the balance of forces in the area, the Remans and the ISC do outweigh the Carnivon. However, the Carnivon and Hydrons do have some strong pillars of strength in the area. How will that fare against the ISC and the Remans? Maybe not this turn, but will the Remans and the ISC set themselves up for an attack next turn or the turn after? What's going to happen? Certainly one of those two factions is going to set up for a right cross, but what is that going to look like and how are they going to set that up? We'll have to see. Of course, we've got the interesting tensions between the Tholians and the Gorn. They've crossed the neutral zone and they're now in the common FTZ. Is that something they all agree to, or is there something else going on? The Romulans continuing to expand and building some new ships. What is that dreadnought for? Are they preparing for war? Are they looking to finish their exploration and move into a different phase of expansion? Military expansion, maybe? Who knows? And of course, the Klingons. Far be it for me to talk about the Klingons, but they are continuing their journey north, sort of taking their highway to heaven as they prepare to engage the Remans and the ISC. They are building their bases. They are heading, they're governed by their North Star and heading towards, whether it's the wormhole for the Tholians or maybe the Remans or possibly the ISC. Either way, they are manning, building the infrastructure to be able to head north and engage. There are some exciting role-playing elements that are happening in the back end, and I will leave you with this last little nugget, talking about the Lyran story. Just before we went live, I got a little note, newsflash from the Lyrans, and I will read it to you now. In year 110, Lyrantan Emperor's throne room. All morning advisors, analysts, and nobles have been coming and going. The guards at the entrance are not only doubled, but they are now in full combat gear and fully alert. Activity at the shipyards and space docks are at a level unseen ever. Rumor of Remans crossing the border and seizure of assets are running wild, but not confirmed as of yet. If so, it would mark our being dragged into the conflict being raged in the East, not only against our will, but against a power we thought a friend. My liege, it is true. Admiral Pearlzar, of the commanding officer of the fleet, started. The Remans have not only entered the neutral zone, but they have seized one of our small mining colonies. Plus, we can now confirm their other fleet in the area has moved to the neutral zone and is poised to enter, as they have not reinforced either fleet. The Prime Minister then spoke. We have received notice from the Riemann ambassador that both moves are due to training and the crossing into the neutral zone was in error. My thoughts on this are a fleet mistake is an error. Two fleets making mistakes is a provocation, and we must act accordingly. Unfortunately, we must mobilize, so if any further mistakes occur, we are ready for them. To do otherwise is both a dereliction of duty and showing weakness. The fleet commanding officer responded, I have the orders ready to go to reposition the fleets to cover the border and intercept any further incursions. All we need is the word. The emperor looked around at his ministers and nobles. He sat silent for a moment and then exhaled. We must do whatever we can to protect ourselves. If it is truly a mistake, then they will move back into their own space. If not, then we will meet them in the field of battle. Send for the Riemann ambassador. Unlike others, we do things properly. We will deliver the black arrows. Send messages to our neighbors asking for their assistance if they can provide it. Let it be known, as of this moment, the Lyrans are going to war. What do you think? Exciting. That was the news flash I got at the beginning of our live stream. Very excited to see how the Lyrans are going to engage their neighbors, opponents, and so on. So we shall see. We shall see what's going on. It's going to be very exciting. Okay. Very tantalizing for sure. Things are starting to cook. Heat is rising, the tensions are growing, and what is going to happen in the map in the next coming turn? Only time will tell, but you can join us next week at this same bat time, same bat channel, 11 o'clock on Saturdays. Join us live as we go and discuss what is going on in this game. If you want to join us for the chitter chatter after the live stream in our Discord channel, then please consider the QR code right there or the link down below, or check us out on Patreon. Either way, there is a tier there that you will find either on Coffee and or on Patreon to be able to join us at the Discord or Coffee Talk link, or Coffee Talk tier, I should say. And then you can join us on our Discord channel and be part of our community on Discord. Join in the witty banter that occurs, for example, after this live stream is done, and just participate in role-playing storylines like you've just seen and heard. So, like I say, join us over there on Discord, show your support for the channel, and be on the lookout and ready to join our next campaign. I will end with this. We have had this New Worlds campaign going on for some time, and our new Into the Void campaign is up and running. There is some chitter chatter. There is some discussion about the next campaign that may be started. We have a group of incredibly talented players that are not only players, but enjoy running games and campaigns themselves. If you are a player or a person who is watching this content and is interested in joining another campaign like this, well, we have one that is currently in the works. For those of you who joined our Into the Void campaign, you know that supporters of this channel on Coffee and Patreon get first dibs on being able to join any new campaigns. And of course, if you are a subscriber with notifications enabled, you will see and be aware of first come, first serve notifications for signing up to these new campaigns. I'm not saying that it's happening tomorrow or even next week, but there is another campaign in the works, and it will be coming before the end of the year, most likely, knock on wood. And so we'll see what that looks like as we go forward. If you are interested in playing games like this, turn-based wargaming and role-playing in a Starfleet universe campaign, then please consider supporting us, joining the subscriber count like our fictional Terry there, and all of that with regards to joining us and becoming part of our community, and of course, joining us on Discord. So things to think about. I'm looking forward to seeing you, of course, next week. Please put your comments below. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button. Let's tickle YouTube in just the right way so it giggles and laughs and makes this video available to all other Star Trek fans who like things wargaming. Last thing I will ask from you, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for staying this long on the replay. And if you can, share this with 2 friends to let them know about all things Star Trek, fun, and wargaming, then please just let your neighbors, your friends, your community of players know that stuff like this is out there. We would love to be able to have them join our community and even just join us in the live stream to be able to share their witty banter, their 2 common sense, and even their salty commentary, because YouTube will filter out the bad stuff, but all the good stuff is entertaining and fun to watch. So thank you very much for joining us today. For all of our brand new live stream joiners, thank you for joining us, and I will see you next week. Bye for now. That's not the screen I wanted.